Hi there. In this lesson I'm going to show you how to make a lively little line drawing using a dip pen and Indian ink, and we're going to be using some reference of a plant for this one. So there's nothing too complicated about the reference I've chosen for this drawing. It's just of a simple plant. When you're drawing out, obviously you could do a trace, but it's really good practice to draw freehand. So to draw this out, I simply looked at the proportions of the plant and the pot. So taking the pot as a unit of measurement, I noted that it went into the top of the plant exactly once again and into the width of the plant 3 times. I just put markers at those points and started to draw out the shapes that I saw in front of me. You can see that actually if I just show you this other very quick little drawing here. Just very simply plotting your shapes onto the paper. You can check those angles actually if you have a straight edge and just have your reference close to your paper. And taking a straight edge, for instance, at the edge of the plant pot, just moving that straight edge across, you can check that your angles are in the right position, and again for the bottom of the pot, etc. But as I said, it's really good practice just to try and draw simple shapes like this out freehand rather than tracing them. Another thing to think about is where to have your ink bottle. Have it obviously close to your drawing hand, but somewhere where it isn't going to get knocked over. The drawing is just going to serve as an underdrawing for us. We're not going to stick to it religiously. But I've got my dipping pen, and as I said in the first lesson, just dip your nib into the ink just up to the hole. Just tap it on the side. Remove the excess ink, have a tissue ready to lean on and to take any blots off if that happens. And it's a good idea to start, if you're right-handed, to start at the left of your paper, again, just to avoid the risk of smudging. So again, I just want, I'm just going to start drawing, and the pen, if the pen doesn't want to work, just keep dipping it in, warming it up. Have a spare piece of paper handy just to warm that pen up if it's proving a little bit difficult. And I'm just making some marks, making some lines, trying to make them a little bit characterful. Don't want them too straight. As I say, I don't need to follow that line absolutely that we've drawn out. That's just a guide. These pens do flow rather well once they warm up, but as I say, they can be a little bit tricky to begin with. And this is just going to be a very, very simple little line drawing, just to get you into holding the pen, feeling the nib. Nice simple drawing like this is a good one to get you started. Just keep an eye on your reference. As I say, don't want to reproduce the photograph exactly, but it's not a bad idea just to keep your eye on it. Keep looking up at your reference now and again. If you keep your head down, you can get a little bit too lost sometimes in what you're drawing, and you'll look up half an hour later and it won't resemble anything that you want it to. So do keep an eye on your reference. Dip pens, of course, are a very old traditional way of drawing, been used for centuries. Be very careful if you are going to lean across at all, just be careful that you don't smudge. And the harder you put pressure on these pens, the thicker your line's going to be. So I'm just very lightly taking the pressure off the pen a little bit to put little veins in. Just working around gently. Take your time, don't rush it too much. Stand back every so often, just sit back a little bit, see how your drawing's looking. Remember that your ink is going to be permanent, so there's no need to rush, just take your time. It's a little bit tricky when you come down to this main stem, which is really the focal point of the drawing, so concentrate on how the leaves join the stem here. Now that mark I've just made there is quite heavy, and that could smudge if I go into it, so I'm just very carefully moving around so to avoid it a little bit there. Right, now concentrate a little bit on this top part here. Some lovely shapes the way these leaves join the stem. Made a little smudge there, but that doesn't matter. I can always, little smudges like that really won't matter. Can easily be rubbed out or scraped off later. You could just make one continuous long flowing line, but I'm just breaking it up a little bit. Pausing, stopping, lifting my pen. I have made a few little blots there. I'll just dry that off. I don't pull it anymore. But I'm not going to worry about it. It is kind of a bit of the nature of these pens. You've got to live with it, really. And it all adds to the character. Now this is the tricky bit here. Just want to really concentrate on how these leaves just connect to that stem. Just all sort of fold in. A lovely sort of pattern, really. Just think where, if you can't see the back of the leaves, just think how they might be folding over, disappearing behind the other leaves there. Just going to start to put in a little bit of the pot now behind. Just soak that little ink blot up there. Okay, I'm going to carry on just adding more marks, finishing off this section here pretty much in the same way that I've shown you so far. We're going to speed it up and then I'll come back to you at the end. Okay, that's pretty much finished now. As you can see, I have some lovely ink blots on my paper. As I said, it's kind of inevitable with dip pens, and you do have to live with it to a certain extent, but I'll just lift them out as much as possible. Without trying to make them worse. And I'm pretty much going to leave that. A nice thing to do just at the end, if you fancy just adding a little bit of interest, you can do some little spatters. You can, if you just knock the pen with your hand, it's just for a little bit of interest. At the bottom. Actually put a little bit of water with the ink too, that helps the flow. And you can flick with your finger as well. You can also use a brush. This is just a hog brush. For spatter, it's probably easier actually. And it just has a little bit of interest to the drawing at the end. There. And that should just about do it for a simple line drawing of a plant. Obviously this is just an example. Find your own way of using the tool. And have fun.